So in my regular business, I have a client who's also a close friend. And near the end of the year, he likes to send me something nice from Sweetwater or Guitar Center. The year before last, he'd actually watched that Beatles documentary, Get Back, and he was all excited about it, so he bought us matching Epiphone Casinos. Mine's right there, kind of love it. But last year, it was a Universal Audio Dream 65 pedal. See how cool it is? It meant a lot to me. It was a really good gift because I really wanted one, and I never would have bought one for myself. And he already had one. He was telling me how great it was. So as soon as I had the thing, I just started scheming on how I could work it into my rig. I really wanted to use it. If you recall my last episode, my Better Than a Helix episode, I explained that using the Stomp together with the HX effects has a benefit. A modular approach means you can switch out components. At the time, I was swapping out my Stomp, which is my amps, for my tube amp when I want to practice at home. And then if I wanted to use like a piecemeal effects pedal or a different all-in-one effects pedal, I wouldn't have to change anything in the other components if I swapped something out. But for my actual rig that I use at church, that would mean swapping out my HX Stomp for the UA Dream pedal. What happened when I tried to do that? Which of these two pedals is a better amp modeler for performing praise and worship music in churches? Let's unpack all of that right now. And at the end, I'll share a bonus tip, a secret hack I figured out to get the top 3 worship sounds and switching between them effortlessly. So the first observation about the difference between this and this as an amp modeler for praise and worship music is that this is kind of a lot of money for just the one thing. They were $400 MSRP, and they were fetching that when they were new. They were the hottest item in 2022. Nowadays, you can get them new for $320, used for $250-ish. Maybe if you wait for the right deal, you get a scratched one for under $200, and you get one amp, a model of a 1965 Fender Deluxe Reverb. Probably the best, most realistic model of the 65 Reverb. And you compare that with one of 6 speaker mic emulations that Universal Audio put into the pedal. Meanwhile, I bought my HX Stomp for $450 used, and it has every amp I could ever want to play. Actually, there's several versions of each amp. It's gonna have Marshalls, Voxes, all the Fenders, there's Dumbles, there's even boutique amps in there. Everything's in there. I've had this thing for years, and I've gone deep with well less than half of the amps available. It's mostly uncharted territory for me still. And on top of that, I can run dual amps in the Stomp, which I do. But the Universal Audio Dream pedal is not intended to be that kind of product. It's not trying to be versatile. It's trying to do one thing extremely well, perfectly, if possible. So is it perfect? Maybe. It's definitely better. Not so much that it makes the Helix sound bad. Do you see this amp behind me? That's a Vox VT30. That is a modeler with a tube in the power section. These things were the pinnacle of amp modeling 15 or 20 years ago. It was awesome. It had like 10 different amps. Now, I sold mine years ago to get out of credit card debt, but when I saw this one on Craigslist, 50 bucks, I had to get it. I had to pick it up. I wanted to relive the glory days, right? It was kind of awesome. Experience this amp that got away. But the truth is, I've been playing the HX Stomp for years. I'm really used to the Helix amp sounds. The VT30 sounds pretty bad now to me. I can't just play that amp. I wouldn't play it out. The generation of amp modelers that we have today that started with the Kemper and the Helix, they made these obsolete. They're not really usable anymore. But this UA Dream pedal isn't so good that it does that to the Helix and the Kemper. If I turn the UA Dream pedal off and I turn the HX Stomp on, then I'll think, well, I kind of like the Dream better. If I turn the Dream 65 pedal off and then I wait a day and then turn the HX Stomp on, I'm not thinking about the Dream pedal at all because I'm just loving what I'm hearing from the Stomp. But let's talk about what better even means. The UA Dream pedal was intended to be as realistic as possible. It was branded as a warts and all model. It would sound as close to the real amp in the room as you could possibly get. And they had like a team of people led by some crazy geeky guy studying this stuff and really putting their heart and soul into getting as close as they possibly could. You know the thing about tube amps, especially old ones? There's a lot of burps and gurgles. There's a lot of noise. They do stuff that you didn't intend. that you don't realize when you're a tube amp guy, you're used to playing tube amps, you're expecting those things. You don't even hear them. The listener doesn't necessarily like them though. The listener doesn't like all these crackles and things like that and speaker distortion. And in studios, when they record guitar amp tracks, they treat them in post. They clean them up. They hit them with compressors or EQs or whatever it is they do. They polish that tone up to be good enough for the recording. So the guitar tones you're chasing, they might not even be amp in the room tones. If you're trying to get a sound that you heard on somebody's recording, you shouldn't make it sound like amp in the room. You should make it sound like amp cleaned up in post, which is what the Helix amps sound like. They sound a little more refined, a little more polished, maybe a less visceral, but definitely more usable, definitely easier to wrangle out of the box. Want to know a secret about electric guitar in churches? Churches don't like noise. Churches like it clean. The whole reason we're using modelers is because the churches don't want to hear our amps on stage. We're not allowed to bring them. Amp in the room is the opposite of what they want. They want it to sound good. They might want it to sound big. They don't want to hear any noise, and they don't care about how authentic it is. It's meaningless to them. Most of the sounds we use have so much reverb and delay, it wouldn't make a difference anyway. You would barely hear it. They would not notice the difference. Now, the one thing that I really like most about using the Universal Audio Dream Pedal instead of the HX Stomp for my amp sims, the onboard reverb and tremolo. They're fantastic. The reverb is a digital model of the spring reverb that would have been in the 65 Deluxe. More and more, I'm finding that I like stacking reverbs a lot. This reverb will always just be at 9 o'clock, just to add a little bit and stack along with whatever reverbs I'm using in my song-specific patches. Normally for tremolo, if the song calls for it, I'm gonna be running that in the HX Effects unit. But I did notice that my friend Dave from church, who also plays electric guitar, he does a lot more ad-lib, improvisation, filling out, especially lighter moments. There's not a lot going on, and he'll just do a little doodle here and there, and it doesn't really step on anything, and I noticed he's usually using a chorus when he does that. So I thought I might be able to replicate that effect with the tremolo here. So I run it using an on-off button. You can tell the other button to do something. I was thinking I could just have that be my tremolo on and off, and if I can basically get the tremolo to calm my signal down so where it's never stepping on anything, and then I could experiment with you know, improvisational fills and stuff like Dave does. But let's shift gears and talk a little bit about user interface. If you watched my other videos on this subject, you're gonna know that I think that this is a very, very strong point for the HX Stomp. Great user interface, easy to use from the buttons and the knobs, easy to use in the editor. Anybody can figure it out, especially running in snapshot mode. It's so easy to just set up your sounds for each part of the song and boom, hit the button during service. You can see what it is. And I can even control my HX Stomp from my HX Effects pedal using MIDI. So how does the Universal Audio Dream 65 user interface stack up? I'm not gonna lie, it's really nice to have regular knobs. The Stomp has knobs, but it's not the same because you really still have to have the display queued up to see what the parameter is set to. All-in-ones like the Helix family of products have this black box effect. You set everything up in the editor and really engineer your sounds and have tons of flexibility, but once you're on stage, your presets are your presets, and you're really hoping you didn't make a mistake programming them. You're kind of trusting what you did in prep, and I hope this button does what I think it does. And obviously you have labels, but if you need to make a change on the fly, on the Stomp, it's annoying, but it's doable. On the HX Effects, it's almost impossible. With the UA Dream Pedal, you can always look down and know immediately what you're working with. You can change it, just reach down and pop, some unexpected need arises. Oh, it's a little too much gain in this room. You just pull it down. You don't have to worry about pulling it down on every single snapshot either. You can pretty much always be seasoning to taste when you're using something like this. Another benefit of this kind of setup where you always have your parameters in front of you, you are building this great intuition for your tone, for all the components of your tone, for the tone stack and the gain stages. That's valuable experience, and you don't get as much of that when you're dealing with the black box. You get that when you're sitting at your desk dealing with the editor. It's more of a marathon of engineering followed by trusting what you did, whereas this is just this slow drip of interacting with the tool, learning in your guts what it does when you do X, Y, or Z. Another thing I love about the user interface for the Universal Audio Dream pedal is that the output knob, the volume knob, is compensated for adjustments in the gain, which is called volume. So if I need more gain and I turn this up, I don't have to turn the output down to compensate. It does that automatically. I don't know if it does that compensation for you with the boost pedal. One problem I've always had with the HX Stomp is that I'll have 5 different patches for 5 different songs, and if I hadn't taken the time to level out their output gain before showing up at church, the sound guy could have a serious nightmare. There could be a preset in there that's this booby trap, where the output volume is so low, our sound guy thinks he lost me and he doesn't know why he doesn't have my signal anymore. Or even worse, it's so much more volume that he's scrambling to pull the fader down because I'm like blowing everybody's head off. It gets really complicated. It's too many things. And there's another cost. When that happens, it makes your sound guy afraid to put you in the mix. He always wants to keep you back, where if it gets out of hand, you're not going to be a problem. If you're always consistent with your output gain, then he can trust you more. That's a common thread when I'm using this Dream pedal instead of the Stomp. It's very limiting. But those limitations, they have benefits sometimes. But there's definitely some downsides. For one thing, there's no editor. There's no way to get under the hood of your presets. You can save a preset, you just hold this thing down right here. There's one slot for the preset. It can save one, but you can also save them to your mobile app, and it will do that automatically. And in the mobile app, you can't edit them. And you can't even see what they are. You cannot see what the parameters are in your preset. You better remember what you did based on what you named it, if you named it. I don't even think there's a way of backing up your presets from the app or sharing them. It doesn't even matter, because the Bluetooth connection on this Dream pedal is so janky, I would be terrified if I was relying on having a connection to that app to change presets during service. That would be a nightmare. I would never know if it's going to work or not. Far and away, the biggest noticeable problem for how I operate my pedals on stage is that there's no MIDI connection here. I can't control this with my HX Effects pedal, which is where I like to control everything. Each of my amp patches in the Stomp has 3 snapshots. They're my 3 core worship tones, the most important core worship tones that you kind of need to get the sounds that people are used to hearing for the songs we do. And when I load a preset with the effects unit, it sends a signal to the Stomp using MIDI to tell it what snapshot we're on based on that song. Or there's another way I used to do it, where I would have a preset of amps for each song. On every song, I'd have an effects preset in the HX Effects that corresponded to an amp preset in the HX Stomp. And when I loaded the HX Effects preset, it would zip over a MIDI message to load up that preset for the Stomp. Either way works. The Dream doesn't have MIDI, and even if it did, it wouldn't help because it can only save one preset at a time. My first thought for getting my 3 sounds out of this thing, I would have to keep the mobile app handy. And during service, I would just call up the preset I needed. It's not viable. You cannot trust that app. You can't trust the Bluetooth connection. Sometimes the only way for me to get them to connect is I will put my phone under the Dream 65 pedal. Pro tip, when you really need your app to load for a minute to change something, just set your Dream pedal on top of your phone, and half the time it'll work. My second idea was to utilize manual mode as the second preset slot. So I would just have my knobs where they needed to be for one preset, and then the actual preset would be another sound. And then I could turn that into 4 sounds if one button toggles manual and preset, and the other button toggled the boost function. So I could have 2 sounds and then 2 that would be a boost of each respective sound. But it doesn't really get me there because the difference in my sounds is not gain most of the time. The difference in the sounds has more to do with the tone stack. Could I condense the 3 sounds into 2? Maybe. I actually started with 4 sounds. I condensed them into 3 sounds because the HX Stomp only had 3 snapshots. But that was a little different because 2 of my 4 sounds were almost identical. And that's not the case for the 3. I could probably condense them, but I would lose something. On my tube amp at home, I actually have dots that I've painted around the knobs, so I can just flip the knobs where they need to when I want to switch between sounds, and that's okay when I'm practicing at home. I don't think I would want to be bending over and turning 4 out of the 5 knobs between each song. Luckily, I found a solution that's better than all of these, and it's our bonus. My secret hack to get the Universal Audio Dream pedal to give me my 3 worship amp tones and to switch between them seamlessly on the fly. My 3 amp tones could be described as follows: scooped and sparkly, Hillsong; mids pushed, and kind of dirty, a little dirty. That would be the Bethel sound. A little balanced, not scooped and not quite mids pushed, and it's also almost dirty, and that's everything else. The key to my trick for getting these 3 sounds from the Universal Audio Dream pedal on the fly, this switch here selects between a stock 65 Deluxe Reverb or one of 2 emulations of a mod on that amp that were popular or common or whatever. Most of what this switch is doing is impacting what this boost knob does. For stock, it's a clean boost, just like the gain block on your HX Stomp. For lead, that's up, it disables the digital bright cap. It tames those harsh highs as you bring the boost knob up, and it also warms it up a little. The DTEX mod is the Stevie Ray Vaughan modification, according to the user manual. It does more than the others. That modification disables the tremolo, and it also brings a lot of mids in. And so much so that as the boost knob comes up, the tone stack is getting tapered down. Pulling the boost knob up when you're on DTEX is equivalent to bringing the highs and the lows down, which of course would be equivalent to bringing a mids knob up if there was one. So what I figured out is that if I dial everything in just right, and if I bring the gain down and then compensate for that by bringing the boost knob up, then the mod switch will have the following effects. In stock, because that boost knob is up, the highs are going to get a little gnarly. It's going to give me that sparkle that I wanted for the Hillsong tones. And the amp is naturally scooped anyway, so it's kind of there. With the switch on lead, it's going to tame off those harsh highs, and it's also going to warm things up, so it's going to be a little more balanced, not so scooped, and that's going to be good for my catch-all tone. In DTEX, it's going to neutralize the tone stack, bringing up the mids, and it's going to get a little dirty because the boost knob has more power on DTEX, and that's going to give me that Bethel tone. So these are the magic settings that I figured out to get these 3 tones with the flip of a switch. The volume, which is the gain, you're gonna be at about 930. I like the reverb on 9 o'clock no matter what, but it doesn't matter for the amp tone. Output can be wherever you need it to be. When I'm playing live, I crank it, but when I was matching it to my Stomp, actually to get them the same volume, it was something like 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock. The bass and the treble are both going to be at 10:30, and the boost is going to be at 10 o'clock. And there it is. That's the magic settings to get all 3 core worship amp tones out of a Universal Audio Dream pedal by just flipping this little switch here. I still don't like bending down to flip the switch. I actually forget a lot. So there it is right there. HX Effects with a UA Dream 65 pedal in the effects loop. It's a little smaller overall. No 4 cable necessary. I don't even need these MIDI cables. But this does beg the question, what do I do with the Stomp now? This actually opens up all kinds of possibilities. Let me tell you an amazing way to utilize the HX Stomp, even when you've got amps and effects covered in the next video. Click right here.